Hello again, here we are, beautiful day. I continue my journey through my statement. A little bit of an update first. We've made further calls and email requests to Northumbria Police Officer Lloyd 1812 about returning the devices that he took from the property. It's almost 10 days now. Um, this is, this is, you have to be realistic. This is part of a sustained campaign that I've been facing of emotional and more latterly at the behest. Lloyd assaulted me in the back of his police car, but it's mainly psychological abuse so far. We have seen some physical abuse when I was arrested on the 19th. Remember, I've discussed this Trojan horse spray painting incident, which they don't have a shred of evidence that was backdated and brought in so they could have this pretext to search the property and so on and take devices. The work I've done with Crisis, I have documented this, so there will be a record with the NHS. People say, "Oh, he's insane." I'm not insane. I'm under immense stress, a lot of trauma, and that has to be managed. But the rest of my mind, I'm afraid, does work quite well. Um, and I'm afraid for other people, of course, when I say that. Um, if you think about what I've done, I've exposed how the the, you know, the financial regulation system is weighted in a way, in immoral way, where it's places the preservation of the regulator, the reputation of the regulator, the FCA, above the welfare of the victims of financial scandals which they have a hand in through gross negligence. So that's not a convenient thing to be raising. If you look at actually the wealth tech scandal, the allegations stretch almost up until the special administration process, the lifeline of the FCA. So it's the embodiment of the failure of the FCA. And nobody wants to talk about that because of the secondary objective and clearly putting money, encouraging people to put more money in the stock market. It just wouldn't sit well. And nobody's asked the obvious questions of the FCA because they hide behind prejudice, which is a ruse. When saying if these allegations are true, what can you do to reassure people they couldn't occur again, given the breadth and duration of them? So I'll go back to the statement now. So essentially, what I talk about here is the head of pastoral at the school and Kim Simpson acting for South Tyneside illegally prevented us from collecting our younger daughter. I've discussed that in other videos, so I won't dwell on that too much. Upon leaving the care of my wife and I, the girls were banned from speaking Polish despite being Polish nationals. That's very true. And this is actually part of the scandal in the care system is children are being emotionally cleansed, detached emotionally from their parents, and clearly the heritage, the Polish heritage is a major part of that. They're being stripped bare of their emotions and their attachment to their parents, ostensibly to be manufactured as cash generative assets. So in essence, they fit the long-term care order model which delights private equity. So children are being traded by local authorities into the hands of private equity owned agencies with barristers, solicitors, and court officials taking a cost of carry effectively. Because if you're a business, you know anything about finance, you look at a few things. The quality of cash flows, which will be high in this instance because they'll be government backed, and the duration of cash flows. And there's inflation protection in there, which there is in this, they become exceptionally valued. So that is why private equity wants to be involved in this sector, and it wants to grow into the sector, and it's done it by consolidating private agencies. So on we go. It was nearly 3 weeks since we were allowed to see our younger daughter. Prior to this, she had never been out of our care, never in one night ever been out of our care. We were forced, under duress, to sign a document authored by Laura Skelton, banning the use of Polish language in the meeting. So 3 weeks on, at a rather filthy contact centre called the Poppyfield Centre, um, they allowed us to see it, but they blackmailed us effectively. One word is Polish speaking. The interview would be the meeting would be suspended, should be taken away. So you imagine the inhumanity of that. Poland, supposedly an ally of the UK, which it is. The UK is not an ally of Poland. History will show you that. Banning the use of Polish for 3 weeks. They could have set up an interpreter to be there, but they didn't because of this process. This emotionally, they want to emotionally re-engineer the children to fit this long-term care model. And that's why identifying this has led to this aggression from Rachel Hudson as well. Back to the statement. I believe this to be the beginning of a planned process which has continued to this day to engage in the cultural genocide, sorry, process of weakening her family attachment, destruction of her Polish heritage, to facilitate the trading of her younger daughter through the family court system to a private equity-owned fostering agency. So that pretty much puts it the way I've just explained it to you. So back to the statement. To be brief, I have collated via vast evidence of this process, including the corruption, racism, evidence falsification, and agency collusion. This includes social workers, legal professionals, court officials, private equity-owned foster carers, and you could also add to that Northumbria Police to facilitate this process. Well, the collusion comes as with the broken arm incident when I was trying to defend that, which in an open process would have been very, very easy. I asked for the ability to the police to conduct an investigation, because then they would have to talk to the consultants who treated her. They would see that the statements had been submitted were false because there were no other injuries on her body. Remember, Angela Nolan said that I picked her up and threw her against bookshelves and she then broke her arm. So others then fell into the line of I picked her up and dropped her almost like a deadlift, up, down. But there were no other injuries on the body. So this must have been by a process of levitation, I assume. And NHS professionals are highly trained in spotting instances of abuse and never raised any concerns over quite a period of time. So, moving on. As advised, we will be publishing evidence from the start of this process, which I will be doing to date. This will be followed by other cases, because I think other people will want to come forward and have their say, because these are very, very similar patterns. South Tyneside Council is one of the most prolific local authorities in trading vulnerable people with private equity-owned agencies. The revenue from this activity forms a large element of their income. It is a mechanism to secure more central government funds. Yeah, that's very true, because essentially, if you look at this council and others like them, they are very, very, they can't support themselves. They're very, very vulnerable in the sense they need huge social transfers to be able to sustain themselves. If you look around, without those, and to a certain degree now, you can look at parts of Britain, and parts of Britain looks like a developing country, very, 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 very run down, backward, and decaying. And this council will be very much the same. So one thing you can do is there's a lot of variability, and Reform have covered this a bit, but I think they need to go a lot deeper. But it's not my fight, what they're doing at local authorities, but they need to go look at this a lot deeper, where there's a key variability in terms of social funding. So taking children, vulnerable children, and they've covered it on things like taxis services for children who are deemed to be neurodivergent. I don't want to get too much into that because possibly some abuses, but there will be children who are worthy of it. So it's a key variability. So there's the one pull. So that's why this council does it and others do it. And the other side of the equation is private equity want these cash flows, which I've just explained. So it's an immensely ill and corrupt system. So moving back to the statement, part of the issues relates to me requesting Northumbria Police investigate one of the allegations against me. Our researcher has uncovered email correspondence between the solicitors in Northumbria Police and South Tyneside Council uh, when they decided, well, effectively decided not to take police engage in a police investigation. Essentially, what happened here is, um, you know, the solicitor from Northumbria Police had suggested, because I'd requested, because it was a bit weird, because they started saying, well, we'll need a police interview, need a police interview, South Tyneside. So they were trying to intimidate me, South Tyneside Council. And I said, yeah, we do. We need a full police investigation. And I actually wrote it in my statements. I actually I took a letter to Northumbria Police saying, you need to investigate this, because these are serious, and we all need a proper say in this. And I also emailed them too. But essentially, what he said is because the foster carer had been very aggressive in the search for evidence, she was trying to effectively secure an income, I guess. Two girls at the time, older daughters since taken a radically different view on her and abandoned our younger daughter in her care. Um, so, essentially, what the solicitor said was, because you could look at it and say the foster carer is prejudiced, quite a bit of evidence, then it just wouldn't be sustainable in a criminal arena with a higher threshold. So then he essentially said, go through your ABA process and keep it in the family courts. I'll explain more about how the family courts work, but the threshold is pretty much on the floor. The threshold is whatever the judge wants it to be. Hudson was able to do that without any accountability, any oversight at all. She can make the threshold whatever she wanted, and it's behind closed doors, no juries, and you've got a judge who's has spent a career in this entire process, who has strong links with the barristers and the local authorities. So I think you can understand where I'm coming from. So back to the statement. Our case was judged by Rachel Hudson, who's accusing me of harassment, and she's also put this mendacious spraying thing in, which I've discussed. Because of her lineage in the industry, so she's got worked right through the industry, we have investigated her thoroughly. During this case, Hudson ignored evidence of racism, corruption, and the falsification of evidence. In the final hearing, she barred representation and the assistance from the Polish consulate. This allowed barrister Christopher McKee, with whom she was very close with and quite collusive. We're going to come to that in further videos. An unfair advantage, as my wife had no support. So what she did is she allowed some the hearings, the case management hearings, were all done virtually, and she allowed some participation from some observation from the Polish consulate. What she did with McKee was, it certainly came from the request came from him, the local authority, is make sure that request, that support and representation wasn't at the final hearing, which was largely in person. We were there in person, and her dynamic changed. Then she became a lot more aggressive, a lot more vicious. She was bullying barristers. I mean, my wife's barrister. She bullied in an appalling way. This is a very, very toxic woman, and we'll come to that in future hearings. So she played a clever game of showing some understanding of the heritage, and then shut it off at the end, because she knew that's when the nasty stuff was going to happen. Which is why these things coming to light has made her become extremely aggressive now. So early in the proceedings, McKee, whose professional relationship with Hudson we have studied in great detail, presented falsified information to the court. Yes, McKee did do this, and I've explained it in an earlier video. Essentially, what McKee did is he presented some case management notes which accused me of not cooperating in the parental assessment, which you have to engage with a social worker who's against you and building evidence for you, of not providing details, contact details for my mother. My mother was dead at that time. I'd been dead quite a few years. She died of lung cancer in 2017, and that was documented in the bundle in a medical assessment conducted by a doctor at the behest of the local authority. So you can see the corruption where it's building. That is a breach of his professional code of conduct. It was brought to the attention of Hudson, who did nothing about it. Right, that's it for this instalment. Take care, bye. I'll be back soon.